Well, ladies, it is time to rethink the way we've been doing breast health. New mammogram guidelines have just been released, and Dr. Kohli sat down with Danny to talk about those changes.
All right, well, today we are with Dr. Kohli talking, of course, about these new guidance changes when it comes to mammograms. And Dr. Kohli, this isn't the first time that these changes have happened, right?
No, Danny, it isn't. In fact, in 2009, they had changed it in the opposite direction. So they said we could start our screening later, we don't have to be as aggressive. But they realize now that we actually need to backpedal a little bit, start at the age of 40 and get a mammogram every other year is what they're saying.
Oh, wow. As early as 40 now is what they're saying.
That's
okay.
Right.
Why is this coming up now?
You know, we've noticed that we're missing a lot of 40 to 50-year-olds that got cancer. Okay. And we don't quite understand why, but the rates of cancer in this population have been going up about 2% a year over the last several years. And so this is really making us think, well, if we don't start till the age of 50 and they're starting to get cancers in their 40s, we really ought to be moving that clock back a little bit.
Okay, so what is the impact that this is going to have, hopefully?
I mean, it's going to have a tremendous impact. We're talking about 20% more lives saved. Wow. Now, if you think about screening, it's a little bit of a balancing act, right? Because we want to screen early enough to catch early stage cancers, but we don't want to screen so early that we're picking up false positives, because especially in our 20s and 30s, our breasts are changing all the time. Our hormones are really active. And so we could get cysts, we could get, you know, benign things like fibroadenomas that show up on mammograms and then lead to sort of unnecessary biopsies and such.
Wow, okay, so that can be kind of scary because somebody can see this false negative or false positive and say, oh my gosh, I have something wrong.
Right.
And then, of course, it ends up being nothing. So who is it that the recommendation does not apply to?
Yeah, so I mean, if you've had a personal history of chest radiation, if you carry one of those BRCA gene mutations that put you at higher risk, obviously, of, you know, developing cancer earlier, if you have a family member who's had an early onset cancer, then it doesn't apply to you as well. And then certain other demographics, you know, if you've had a lot of breast biopsies, if you've had some suspicious lesions in the past, even if you've been in your 20s and 30s, maybe you ought to start screening earlier.
Okay. Now, Dr. Kohli, you just said that this is something that has changed, right? Over time, this has changed a few times, and now this is earlier for us. But I can imagine that some doctors have been pushing back on this recommendation and disagree with this, right?
Many. And in fact, I would say I'm one of those, to be honest. Okay. Yes, because I think they're saying at the age of 40 every other year. Personally, I'm more than 40, I screen myself every year with mammograms. And so really a lot of doctors are saying that every other year is not enough. It's a step in the right direction, but imagine a tumor, you get a clean bill of health, and then 2 years later you could have a sizable sized tumor if you wait every other year to do. The other part of this that we're not thrilled with is the fact that they don't have any guidance for dense breasts. We know that 50% of women or so can have dense breasts. And we know that mammograms can give us a fake out on a dense breast because you're looking for white on a background of white. You know, so it's all tissue and you can't really see that tumor. And so those women may actually need advanced technologies like MRIs in order to screen them, and these guidance doesn't cover anything. In addition, it says after the age of 74, really to stop screening. It only talks about women up till the age of 74 or 75. And we know now that women are living well into their 80s and 90s. And so there may still be benefit to screening an older 70-year-old woman, 75-year-old woman, an 80-year-old woman perhaps even. So that's the other piece of it. And then finally, there's some racial disparities as well. We know that Black women have, you know, more mortality when it comes to breast cancer. So should they be screened a little bit differently? Should demographic groups be carved out that are higher risk for dying from breast cancer to have kind of specific guidelines for them?
I want to touch on insurance coverage too, because I know everybody's worried about the money piece. I mean, what else do we need to know about this?
So mammograms, even once a year, are covered right now by insurance. If you have dense breasts, then you need to talk to your doctor, but really, you know, you should be able to get an MRI or at least an ultrasound or some other imaging modality covered as well. But until these guidelines really do come around and start being more aggressive, unfortunately, the insurance companies do get an excuse to be able to say, well, it's not in the guidelines, so we can absolutely say no. But just don't let that deter you. The American College of Radiology, who are the doctors that read the mammograms, are actually saying that every woman starting at the age of 25 should start talking to her doctor. What is my risk? When should I start getting screened? Have that conversation so that all your ducks are lined up in a row. You're not being reactive, but proactive when it comes to preventing cancer.
Excellent. Okay, well, Dr. Kohli, thank you so much. I'd say for patients that don't know, talk to your doctor, right?
Absolutely. Never wrong to do that. And if you're over the age of 40, you're a woman, haven't had a mammogram, pick up that phone today and call your doctor.
Excellent. Dr. Kohli, thank you so much for the information.
Great advice. And of course, if you would like to learn more on these new guidelines, you can head to breastcancer.org.